Have you ever seen someone stay in a relationship that was clearly hurting them, and thought, why don't they just leave? Maybe that person was your friend. Maybe someone in your family. Or maybe it was you. Because toxic relationships are strange. They can make someone cry every night, destroy their confidence, drain their mental health, yet somehow become the person they miss the most. And the scary part is, this doesn't happen because people are weak. It happens because toxic relationships can literally affect the brain like an addiction. And once you understand the psychology behind it, human behavior in relationships starts making a lot more sense. So let's break it down. Your brain operates using reward systems. Whenever you experience something pleasurable, food, social approval, achievements, social media notifications, your brain releases dopamine. Now most people think dopamine is the happiness chemical. Not exactly. Dopamine is more about anticipation and craving. It's the chemical that makes your brain say, do that again. And here's where things get dangerous. Your brain releases the strongest dopamine responses not from predictable rewards, but from unpredictable rewards. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, which sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Imagine two scenarios. In the first one, every time you press a button, you get money. Cool. Predictable. In the second one, sometimes you get money, sometimes nothing, sometimes a huge reward unexpectedly. Which one becomes addictive faster? The second one. That's literally how slot machines work. Your brain becomes obsessed with uncertainty, because it keeps thinking, maybe the next try will be worth it. Now look at many toxic relationships. One day they're cold and distant. Next day they suddenly become loving, affectionate, apologetic. One moment you feel ignored. The next moment they text, I miss you. And your brain reacts powerfully to that sudden emotional reward. Not because the love is healthy, but because unpredictability intensifies emotional craving. Your brain starts chasing the good version of them. The same way gamblers chase the next win. That's why toxic relationships often feel more emotionally intense than healthy ones. Healthy love is stable. Toxic love is chemically stimulating. And unfortunately, the brain can confuse stimulation with connection. But dopamine is only one part of the story. There's also stress. A toxic relationship keeps your nervous system in a constant state of emotional alertness. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, the chemicals linked to stress and survival. Suddenly you start overanalyzing everything. Their typing speed, their tone, their last scene, their dry, okay, text that somehow ruins your entire afternoon. Your brain becomes hyper-focused on the relationship because emotionally unstable situations activate survival instincts. In simple words, your nervous system starts treating the relationship like a problem that must be solved to feel safe again. And humans become obsessed with unresolved emotional tension. That's why people in toxic relationships often think about the person constantly. Not necessarily because the connection is deep, but because the brain hates unfinished emotional uncertainty. And then comes one of the most powerful psychological effects. The trauma bond. A trauma bond happens when emotional pain is repeatedly followed by comfort from the same person causing the pain. For example, they hurt you. You cry. Then they apologize, become sweet, and suddenly make you feel loved again. Your brain experiences relief. And relief after pain feels incredibly powerful. Over time, your brain starts connecting suffering with affection. Pain, then love. Pain, then relief. And eventually the relationship starts feeling impossible to leave. Not because it's healthy, but because your nervous system got conditioned into dependency. This is why people sometimes defend toxic partners even when they know they're being treated badly. Their brain is addicted to the emotional cycle. And scientifically, emotional rejection affects the brain more deeply than most people realize. Brain studies show that rejection activates some of the same neural pathways involved in physical pain. Which means heartbreak is not just in your head. Your brain literally processes it similarly to injury. And when the relationship also contains emotional highs and lows, the withdrawal becomes even stronger. That's why after toxic breakups, people often feel withdrawal symptoms. Checking the phone constantly. Mood swings. Loss of appetite. Obsessive thinking. Feeling empty without the person. It resembles addiction withdrawal because the brain got used to emotional dopamine spikes. And when those spikes disappear, everything suddenly feels emotionally flat. Now here's the part most people misunderstand. Healthy relationships can sometimes feel less exciting at first. Why? Because your nervous system is no longer in survival mode. There's no constant anxiety. No emotional guessing game. No fear every few hours. And if someone grew up around chaos or unstable affection, peace can actually feel unfamiliar. Sometimes people mistake anxiety for chemistry. But real love usually doesn't feel like emotional warfare. Real love feels emotionally safe. Consistent. Calm. Not because it lacks passion, but because your brain is finally not fighting for stability anymore. And maybe that's the biggest difference between addiction and love. Addiction keeps you emotionally dependent on unpredictability. Love gives your nervous system permission to finally relax. And honestly, sometimes the healthiest relationship you'll ever experience is the one where your mind finally feels quiet.